Good evening. Hello, hello. How are you guys doing tonight? Tonight we are going to be doing some solo content. Or more precisely, we're going to solo some party content. And I'm very open to suggestions in the chat at any time on things we could go for. And otherwise, I'll figure some ideas out for what we can go for. Most of the content that is level 80 or below is sort of on the table. It just depends on what we can and cannot get away with. Mainly being that content that is above level 70 means that we'll probably be using a tank for it. And content at level 70 or below, there's an opportunity to use Blue Mage. But it would be most interesting to use the combination that makes it as difficult as possible. Meaning that if we're doing low enough content, then maybe we can do it synced. Maybe we can do it with a tank and not Blue Mage. Maybe we can do it with a healer and not a tank. Things like that. I think the vast majority will be done with either warrior or Blue Mage. And hey, Pokeshack. Sastasha Synced with Scholar or Sage. We could try that. We could try. It's not entirely out of the question. I do think that Scholar would be stronger. Let's actually take a look at that. So at level 18, we would have regular old Ruin at 150 potency. And we would have Celine or Eos healing us. We would also have Bio 1, which is dire. We would not have Whispering Dawn, so our healing would mainly consist of Celine or Eos and ourselves spamming Physic. Repose could be very helpful for singling out enemies if it is really difficult. But on most boss fights, we will be forced to deal with all of the enemies, I think. Compare that to Sage. There, I think this potency is misleading. Let's see. Traits. Yeah, you can see doses jumps to 250 potency here. It's probably closer to 200 or maybe even 150 at low levels. But what's more important is that if we get in a situation where we need to spam heal ourselves, then we will not have our Cardia heals to help us, while a Scholar will have their Celine or Eos to help. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Pokeshack. At that level, you usually don't have to help yourself, but in a dungeon, you have to keep in mind that... I have a 610 on both tank and healer, so you can see here that... let's see, where is that actually in the UI? Seems that it is not in the UI. Anyway, so you can see that the defense on this chest piece is 428. The magic defense is 750, but that's not super important. If we hop to the tank, you can see that the defense is 1071, so close to 4 times as big. No wait, 2.5 times as big, my bad. I flipped 2 and 4. But yeah, somewhere in the ballpark of like 2.5 times more defense, which means that a tank, just by default, will take way less damage. So what that means is that Eos or Celine can probably get away with just spam healing a tank and it'll be good. Especially if the tank uses the defensive cooldowns they do have available. But Eos and Celine might not be able to keep a healer alive doing the exact same thing. However, I think that's actually a really good idea, like a really funny suggestion to start with. Is it possible for a synced but overgeared, you could say, healer to solo the first dungeon in the game? Is that possible? I would say maybe. I think one of the biggest difficulties we would face is actually the final boss, because I don't think we will actually be capable of dealing with the ads spawning. Like, we will be forced to just take it as they spawn, because I don't think you can access the grades while the boss is hitting you. Because of that, you will simply have to let those 4 ads spawn, and those 4 ads will spawn because we will be lacking the DPS to do otherwise. But it is worth a shot. We might be able to out-heal it. The question is whether we can out-heal it and also damage the boss. I think it's an interesting challenge. So I think let's actually start with that. Then we can see how that goes. I have a feeling that we will not be able to solo Sastasha with a healer synced. But I think it's a really funny way to start. So let's go into Sastasha. So we have very limited abilities. So we should... One thing we should do is we should make sure that repose is somewhere on our bars. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna override my mount, because that's a button I will undoubtedly remember that I have no longer access to. So let's see how difficult one bat is. And it missed. And it's doing about 2/3 of the damage that my pet is healing. So 1 bat is safe. 2 bats would be able to outpace the automatic healing. Exactly. If we can't make it, it would be interesting to know why. And it would be funny, wouldn't it? So we'll see how far we can get. Hey Ralo, how are you doing? At the suggestion of Pokeshack, we're trying to solo Sastasha Synced with a healer. So I don't think there's any practical reason why you would ever do this, aside from it being hilarious. But we're going to find out tonight whether it's possible. Oh. So here's a little tech. I'm gonna poison up both of them and then sleep. I'm gonna try and sleep one of them. And then we find the other one. Oh, really, Ralu? I'm sorry about that. I thought it would. I thought it had like a different kind of signage if it's a video that I'm posting. But yeah, you're right. For once, I haven't like explicitly put stream anywhere in the title. I felt that just calling it "Can I solo that?" felt very clean, so that's why I didn't. But maybe I should do that for the future, Alu. Then people won't mistake it for something else. I hope you will find this entertaining anyway. Let's see the bloody memo. So, for those that don't know, this is where you find out what the item you have to press for the first boss is. And it says that the captain liked his wine red, which means that we need to click the red coral when we get there. So we continue forth through Sastasha alone. Synced. The #1 summoner player. This is probably not the stream where I'm going to be playing very much summoner, because summoner is not very capable of soloing anything. But I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time with tanks and Blue Mage. So the big trick here is that we're going to try and single out enemies as best as we can. Simply because if we only fight one thing, then we can safely just nuke it down before it becomes a problem. And if it should come to that, technically we can progress through ads or trash packs simply by killing one, dying, and then killing one and dying repeatedly. As long as we defeat at least one enemy, we're progressing. But as Pokeshag and I discussed before, clearly the amount of healing provided by Celine here is very, very large. It's very helpful. And Pokeshag says, maybe Gunbreaker can do with the 1-2 combo with the shield if he has the shield buff in the second attack at this level. I believe Brutal Shell just has the healing component at this level. If I remember correctly, they unlock the shield at a higher level, which means that the healing is half as large. But you're right, if any tank would be able to solo anything at this level, it would probably be Gunbreaker. Let's actually see how well it goes if we just fight them simultaneously. Okay, we're gonna get interrupted a little bit. So we have to keep in mind that we have to make sure we stay enough ahead in health that we can make it if our cast gets interrupted. But it does seem like we can reliably fight two enemies at once, which is very helpful to know, because I think there's going to be parts in this dungeon where we simply have to fight 2 or 3 enemies at the same time. I could use Surecast, that's true. If we need to get a heal through, I could use Surecast. I could also use Swiftcast to make sure it goes through. Generally, I think the important aspect here is to make sure we know how much Physic heals for, and then make sure to heal in good time. That will probably be the most helpful. And speaking of which, how much does it heal? 193, so about 200. So when we're about half health, it can be worth it to cast a heal on ourselves. So the first thing we have to keep in mind here is trying to dodge as many of those clams as we can. That will be super helpful, because they are I think they're going to be some of the most annoying enemies to deal with. It's closer to 50% Pokeshag. I have just shy of 400 health. Recast the dot this one. Hey Andromeda. Oh, okay. Good night in that case. And thank you for stopping by. So far it seems to be pretty well. Now the big question is, how strong are the Shade Seekers? Okay, they're not very strong, so we might be able to just ignore them outright. You can just ignore them while the clam is closed. No, no, now Rallo, now you've made me worried. I sure hope I'm not tricking anyone into clicking this thinking that it's a guide or something. I could use the dot, Pokeshack, but actually the dot is like... Oh yeah, they might actually get one-shotted by it now that you mention it. They might get one-shotted. Yeah, since they almost died from a single ruin. Ow. But it does seem like ads or trash packs are mostly just something that we have to get through. They're not going to be an issue. We're not going to have any massive mana issues or any problems dealing with the enemies at all, as long as it's like 2. Your party finder at P6S. Were you missing people? That is very sad. I actually thought that bio was gonna kill the fossil shell. That's why I switched target. Let's try your theory, Pokeshack. I don't think there's any reason to actually cast bio on the clan, because it's just gonna turn invulnerable halfway through. Pokek says, that's what you do when it's your turn to Sastasha to Scholar in Sastasha. Oh wait, there's 3 enemies. I think in that case we may want to sleep something. Just to make it a little easier. Uh-oh. Looks like the Aurum has a damage buff. That's really important to keep in mind. Oh dear. Let's sleep that then. And then we fight the fossil shell down. And then we try to fight the Aurum, because I think that sleep is gonna wear out. Oh, we can fight the Aurelia as close to dead as we can. Actually, use this opportunity to sleep that again and then switch it up. Oh, we're actually running out of mana. Got a healer in Castrum that... Oh, now I have to pay attention here. That Aurum is very, very scary, suddenly. We got it. Okay, so that's really important. The Aurum. I guess that was the only Aurum in the dungeon, so I think we're fine. You said you had a healer during main quest roulette today who didn't unlock their job quest before entering, so you wiped 7 times. Oh boy. And I didn't even see that I was standing in the telegraph there. That's really tough when you have a class in content beyond level 30. Well, Pokeshack, it did seem like the Shade Seekers die from a single bio. But the fossil shell took more. Even though it had like 10% health left. See, the Shade Seekers are dying. You tried to use your level 43 Scholar today and you forgot that it was a shield healer. So you let your tank's health go down and was... Yeah. Well, what you have to do if you're level 43 is remember to use both Adlocuium and Physic. as you get to, when you get to level 45, you can catch a tank that drops really low by using Lustrate. It does seem like the general answer is that ads aren't a problem for a healer in Sastasha. The big problem is I wonder if this is gonna take like 30 minutes or 45 minutes only for us to reach the final boss and figure out that we can't actually solo it. So 10 minutes ago or something, we discovered that we had to use the red coral formation to avoid getting ads. As you can see, the trap just turns off. And now it's boss time. It doesn't do very much, we just have to be aware of the telegraph that it does sometimes, because we have nothing to stop it with. And apparently I can't get hit. Never mind. The good news are that there's so much time between its attacks that I can pretty much cast a full heal in between them. So this boss is pretty much trivial. It's just really long. We're almost halfway, and we're not even we're not in any remotely in danger. So this should be fine. We just have to sit here and deal with it for a few minutes. We can even skip entirely healing sometimes. This is the time to cast a heal. The next guy, the perfect rotation to Sastasha with Scholars Synced and Solo. Probably not. Probably not. I don't think that would be very helpful. Write down the name for April Fools. I think we could come up with something way funnier for April Fools, but I haven't done anything for April Fools. I didn't do that this year either. Let's see. Can we fight 3 enemies at once? I think the answer is no. I would prefer dealing with the Reaver first. I have a feeling that's gonna be the one that happens to have some ability that might be scary. And that also happens to mean that we can just cycle which dog we sleep to keep the damage down. Oh, look at that. It was in fact the Reaver that had an ability that we had to dodge. We sleep this one, then continue the fight. I'm thinking the rest of this stream we should probably focus on a little bit higher level content that is a little more interesting than this. because it's every single fight is pretty much just a DPS check. Do the enemies have enough damage output to beat my healing? And if they don't, then it's just tedious. And we want to avoid as much combat as possible, because every single enemy takes 40 years to fight. That's true, Pokeshack. It gives the opportunity for people to come in with fresh ideas. Let me actually just write that. And then we can pin that. And now we have another boss fight. And this is 2 Reavers. So what we want to do is we want to fight one of them. If we can sleep one, we should sleep one. And then, you know, I'm pretty confident that Captain Madison is immune, but he's going to have way more health than the Reavers. So we're gonna sleep that guy and then fight that guy. And then we're gonna test. Maybe we can sleep him. The answer is no, we cannot sleep him. We can, however, put Bio up on him. Rallo suggests Gunbreaker in Sigmascape 9 Savage. Let's see, which one is that? Sigmascape 9. Guess you mean 09. Which one is that? Is that the one that is the final boss of Final Fantasy 1 or something? I think I saw something. I think I saw Mr. Happy managed to solo 09. I think that was it. With Warrior. Just before the new raid tier or something like that. But I might have seen that wrong. The big question there is whether there's a DPS check in 09s. There's a DPS check like halfway through the fight, and if you can't beat it, then you lose. That would be the main thing that would prevent us from doing it. I do believe it's on that's how it is on Savage. I do know that DPS check is actually also there on normal. So the question there could be, do we, like, what jobs have the tankiness to survive chaos, while simultaneously having the DPS to beat chaos? I believe it is Pokeshack. Pretty sure that's the name. Yeah, Warrior in any content after level 60 is a good option. Exactly, because raw intuition is absolutely insane. Is there any way to avoid those 3 enemies? There's a chance that we could fight the 2 enemies there instead. And that would be significantly easier. And let's fight the dog first. But you could try that, Rallo. But I can say, of course, right now that it would not be possible synced, so we would have to do it unsynced just to give it a try. I would probably also be much more likely that it can be done with... I think it's a lot more possible that Warrior has the survivability to do it reliably. Although, if we're missing damage, then Gunbreaker would be the obvious choice to switch to. Since Gunbreaker happens to have the highest... I don't believe it has the highest damage of all the tanks. Right, there's a patrol there. Well, sort of. This is a little bit of a scary pull. I think there's no other patrols. There's actually a really, really difficult fight coming up. Because the ad in the captain's room with the axe hits extremely hard for some reason. It just hits really, really hard. Like, if you've ever done this dungeon with a tank that does really good damage, or with a tank that takes the damage really well so you can easily pull a lot, that ad is typically the time where you get surprised that, oh, I actually have to heal the tank. Right, there was the key. I was wondering if the key was in that pack, and if it was, then there was really no point at all in having like an alternative route. But isn't that interesting? If you wanted to, you could skip, like, take a pull with only 2 mobs in them and, like, run past that bigger pack with, I believe it has also a range and stuff like that. But because it's the shortest path, people always run through the pack with 3 mobs. Oh, I know, Pokeshack. But the ad in the captain's room is not the same as these ads, if I remember correctly. I don't believe it's a Reaver. So while it doesn't have like a loot chest of any sort, it does like function as a mini boss, you could say. There we are. Let's see if I'm right on that one then. Oh, okay, apparently he's just a Reaver and he can just surprise you, maybe. No, he does hit harder. You see it, he hits like twice as hard as all the other Reavers, and he does the heavy swing for a lot of damage. This guy hits hard enough that we have to like stay over like significantly over half health to be on the safe side. Look at that. And his name is the same as the other ads. He's just weirdly strong. And then he also has that. But that's really what tricks you, is that he doesn't have a different name from all the other Reavers. It's just that he's the only Roegadin Reaver. And we're almost there. And then we get another key. And then there's like 4 packs left. Something like that. Maybe the dogs can kill you. Maybe? Like, I think as long as we're fighting at most like 1 or 2 enemies at once, we're gonna be fine. Which is why the scary part is whether there are any packs with more than 3 enemies in the final room. Michael is the new Reaver recruit. Before he worked in customer service, that's why he has a lot of hate and hits very hard. He also goes to the gym 7 times a week. And his axe is the one that his mother gave him. He's very proud of it. Meanwhile, the others are missing me and hitting for like 1/3 of the damage. I'll have you know that this rotation that I'm running is very inspiring. Mash 1. The rotation. He's the gym owner's best friend. Oh right, there's another boss fight on the way. I always forget this fight. For some reason I pictured the door we just opened leading right to where behind this door. Well, we're going with the exact same strat because the trash pack is the exact same thing. The only question is whether Captain Madison hits harder now that his life is more in danger. I don't think he used Fast Blade on the previous boss fight. Ow. And I'm pretty sure the Reavers didn't use like any abilities on the previous boss fight. We have to re-sleep that guy. And now we can fight him. This fight looks hard. Yep. I think actually we're reaching the point where it starts getting a little dangerous. Let's just say that the choice of making use of repose was probably a good one. Just based on how much damage we've managed to avoid by sleeping enemies. If we had gone as a tank, the only choice we would have had would be using our defensive cooldowns smartly. But I still will stand by that it would probably have been like the strongest option we would have had is using Gunbreaker if we wanted to solo Sastasha with a tank. Simply because it's the only tank at level 18 with any reasonable amount of healing. Which is what makes or breaks this. That's the main reason why Blue Mage is capable of soloing so much content, is because it's capable of choosing to be tanky like a tank and have the healing of a healer simultaneously, and also still bring very, very good DPS. Also that, Gunbreaker would have no mercy to help with the damage. Meanwhile we have Ruin, which is extremely exciting. We also have to keep in mind that there's like, right at the end of this fight, he summons more apps. It just occurred to me that I can remove this accuracy down. Does he leave on 50% or is it even lower in this second round? There it is. But does he just summons ads? Okay. That changes some things. How much damage do they do? Okay, they're extremely weak. They're doing like 9 damage per hit. It's like deceptive. There are 4 of them and you think that they're extremely frightening because you fought 2 of them at once throughout the dungeon. And now there's 4 and a boss, only to find out that these ones don't hit that hard. And that's actually a little weird. Like, this entire dungeon has this weird gimmick of having enemies that look the same but do varying amounts of damage. That's pretty funny. They look intimidating, but they're actually chihuahuas. I don't know if you noticed, but at least one of those scurvy dogs is tiny compared to the rest of them. Pokecheck says, the Awake Weaver. He attacked Tom's weakness since he doesn't sleep. Since he doesn't sleep because he studies medicine and stays up at night studying, he is always sleepy. He is a monster. And Rado says, devs should give up and make Blue Mage an actual class already and make Savage procs clear in 2 minutes. I think if Blue Mage was made like able to reach level 90, for example, and this boss doesn't even give us any loot. Cool. If they made Blue Mage actually able to like run content at max level, I think the biggest issue you would run into is similar to when you're doing like 8-man old content in any capacity, like when I was doing Moogle Tombstone runs in, I believe it's 02, where people would bring, you know, 1 tank, 1 healer, and 6 DPS, and basically the pace at which you could clear the fight was dictated by how many Blue Mages you could bring that knew the perfect rotation to optimize the damage. So if you could have Blue Mages at max level, I think 99% of the time, the Blue Mage would probably never be a tank. Maybe they would be an off-tank, for instance. That could work. They would probably not be a healer because of their limited healing ability. But I could imagine that you would have like 2 Blue Mage DPS. At least 2, but you would want to have a proper melee and a proper ranged physical to get the party bonus. But that would be the balancing act, is that the reason why Blue Mage endgame content is difficult is because Blue Mages are really good, but some things they're not that good at. Namely, they're not the best tank and they're not the best healer. They're really good at doing both things, but they're not the best in any stretch of the imagination. Whoops. You would always prefer to at least have your main tank be something else than a Blue Mage, in my opinion, simply because while Blue Mage has the best defensive cooldowns in the game in Diamondback, and they have some incredibly overpowered tools at their disposal, when they're not using defensive cooldowns, they're closer to like a paper tank. They take nearly as much damage as a DPS would. So you have no reason to use a Blue Mage as a tank if you could choose anything else. The only reason why you use 8 Blue Mages in Blue Mage content is because when you're doing the Blue Mage log, you have to have 8 Blue Mages in your party, otherwise it doesn't count. But that's also why when people are doing Aurum Vale for Moogle Tomes, they are a lot more lenient towards the option of bringing a non-Blue Mage tank than a non-Blue Mage DPS, because Blue Mage is the best DPS in the game in an even, like, on an even playing field, pretty much. But it's not the best tank and it's not the best healer. At least not if we're talking healing output or tanking capability, you know, how much damage they can manage to mitigate reliably. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, Ralu, but like, if you've seen how much damage P5S does just from its auto attacks, just the auto attacks, I'm pretty sure we can agree that a Blue Mage would probably not be able to deal with that. Because like, one thing is tanking a tank buster like a boss, because you use Diamond back and take nearly no damage. A completely different story is being able to tank every auto attack that hits like a small truck. Just a small truck. Yeah, Blue Mage would die within 2 or 3 auto normal hits. Exactly. It would go down so fast. And generally, the way that I've seen Blue Mages tank stuff is mainly to like use the OGCDs to build an enmity lead. But for the majority of a boss fight in actually really, really hard content, a Blue Mage will just spam stuff like Blood Drain to keep their mana up, and then use White Wind to heal themselves, and Diamond back to reduce the damage they take for a little bit, which means that they're not going to be attacking very much. And that's simply because they take so much damage. And yes, they do get more defense, but it's still a mage. It's still a mage. Like, bam! Cheese and grilled up. Well, here it comes. So, just as a reminder of how this boss is supposed to go, I'm guessing that most players have never seen it done the way it's supposed to be done. Is that when these unnatural ripples like splash up, you're supposed to run over, right click it like this, and interact with it. But I'm like 90% certain that a kick in the back from the boss is gonna interrupt me outright, and I will just flat out not be allowed to do it because the cast time might be longer than the boss's swing timer. But on the off chance that we can, I'm gonna stand next to one of the greats so that we can at least do that one. Ow. Yes, I believe 3 attacks. Basic attack, and an instant there, and then the cone attack. So, actually it would be better for me if I turn him so that he isn't pointing at the grate. On the off chance that he chooses to cast it when I need to deal with the grate. And not this grate actually activated. Let's see if we can do it. We got one. Can we manage the other one in time? We cannot. We even got interrupted. But there was only 2. So if we can reliably deal with one grate and just kill the other one, then I think this might be possible, as long as I don't die to a 1-2 punch here. I think Surecast won't actually fix that, Pokeshack. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like we can outrun him with Sprint. So if we just run on time, it doesn't matter, because we can just run away from him, and as he's catching up, we'll deal with the grate. And if you're wondering why I'm hanging out in the middle of the arena instead of next to a grate, we discovered just now that it's going to be 2 random grates that activates. So it's better to be equally close to all of the grates at the same time. Oh wait, there's 3 grates activating this time. And, okay, we got 2 of them this time. Actually, there's another thing that I just remembered. Because the boss is an old school Realm Reborn boss, and he's kind of unresponsive at times, we can reduce the damage he does to us by skating around the arena and slide casting when he does anything. Then he'll like get his next auto attack delayed by like a second. Because he has to turn and run to us. So we can reduce his damage output like this. And look at this, suddenly it feels like Celine might actually be able to keep up with the damage. I'm gonna try Surecast. That did not work. I don't think we're gonna be able to stop all of them. We don't even get to stop 2 of them. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to do the extremely genius strategy known as run. This sort of works. Except they cast ranged attacks on me. So what I'm banking on here is that the boss is not gonna cast the ripples again. Alright, and got him. Now it's just the boss again. So we can deal with it even if all of the ads spawn. It's still manageable, we can win. Let me actually just put Celine in the middle. I'm pretty sure she can reach me from there. I think she's gonna be a little faster to cast heals on me if she's just hanging out there. Instead of chasing me around. I wouldn't be super happy if he starts casting more, but I think he started casting the 3rd one on like 33% health or something weird like that. So it might be like health based when the grades are activated, even though I don't think you've ever seen it work like that. And there we go. So to the question, can you solo Sastasha Synced with a healer? Yes. It takes like 45 minutes. And it pretty much has to be a scholar. Nothing else will do. So that's it. We can do that. So the next suggestion is Ralu suggested doing O9S. You said with a gunbreaker, but I'm going to say I'm gonna try with a warrior because I'm much more confident in my ability to play warrior, which means that I'm a lot more confident in my ability to come up with solutions to problems on the fly with a warrior than I am with a gunbreaker, where with a gunbreaker I'll be distracted by trying to get the no mercy window right. Bokshak says, remind me to not recommend something again because it ends badly. I don't know what you mean. That went well. We beat it. Like I'm pretty I opened by saying I don't think we can, but maybe. And then we tried, and we succeeded. So I think that went well. It just took a really long time. But yes, the next thing, so we can try different jobs if we find out that it is necessary, but I'll for the most part lean towards roles like more like the challenge role, like for instance, can you beat O9S with a tank rather than can you do with a gunbreaker, because I don't like, let's say that it is doable with a tank. I don't think I can do it with a gunbreaker, but I might be able to do it with a warrior. We made it. I only lost 30 years of my life, but we made it. I don't think that we were in like any massive danger. The problem in that dungeon is that the enemies, like the ads, look much more threatening than they actually are, because the ads in the dungeon, like the trash packs, hit much harder than the ads on a boss fight. Like, to be specific, the Reavers at the start of each fight with Captain Madison were actual ads from the dungeon, so they did the normal damage you would expect. But the dogs that he spawned in the middle of the fight were like weak versions of the dogs in the dungeon, and did like a third of the damage they normally would, and had like a fifth of the health they normally would, but they looked exactly like, and was named exactly like, the dogs throughout the dungeon, so you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You would just be looking at it like, huh, I'm really tanky on these ads, and I'm doing a lot of damage. Like, it's just weird. And on the last boss, the boss summons ads that are not seen anywhere else in the dungeon, but they hit about as hard as, like, half as hard as a normal ad. We know already from doing the dungeon that I could survive just by fighting regularly. I could survive 2 ads just smacking away at me, no problem. And those ads, even with all 4 of them alive, they would just amount to 2 ads. The problem there was that the boss was also there smacking away at me and did more than 2 ads combined. So if there was just the 4 ads, this would have been a cakewalk. Like, the boss would have been easy. But it's a boss and the ads, which is what's causing the problem. But if we only had like 2 ads, we could almost ignore them. Like, in hindsight, we could probably have ignored them in some capacity and just gone on to fight the boss. But the problem is that they would keep summoning more ads. So just to summarize, it's not that hard to solo Sastasha with Scholar Synced, but it's very time consuming. It took us 46 minutes and 20 seconds, I can see in my chat log. Now, let's see. Ralu suggested O9S, so that's not that one. That's this one. I don't think I've actually ever been on O9S. So what's gonna happen here is that I'm gonna see the savage mechanics for the first time. And probably get stomped by some of them. But it's worth doing it and seeing how it goes. The worst that can happen is that we discover a mechanic where I need to figure out what to do about it. In the meantime, we can see how far we can get on the first try. As I said, I'm pretty sure I have not done this fight ever. So O9S. Oh yeah, I've never been here before, that's why the cutscene is playing. So we're figuring out how the boss works and whether we can solo it all at once. The Reaver of the room is stronger. Yeah, he hit for 130, I believe. The last boss in Sastasha's extra attack only did like 90. So that ad did hit harder than the boss. Right? I'm just gonna put on tank stance. I don't think it matters. Damning Edict. I think that's size. Nope, that's front. But it didn't do very much damage, so we're good. Donut AoE, it looks like. So the things that I'm particularly afraid of is if he's casting any stack markers or anything even remotely close to a DPS check. And because the normal version has a DPS check. There it is. That was what I thought he did first. Oh, I think you die if you get hit by both back to back. It's better to just not move if you're uncertain on that mechanic. Chaotic Dispersion. Let me just use a defensive cooldown just in case. Yeah, that's a tank buster. How hard is he gonna hit now? He missed. He just completely whiffed. Okay, 32,000. How much does he hit normally? Can you hit me? Okay, so the tank buster makes me take 10 times more damage. Okay, so the stack marker stunned me. Big bang. Are all these gonna... Okay, I thought they were gonna target me. Oh, Cyclone. If I remember correctly, on normal... it deals damage when the effect ends, and knockback from the wind doubled. I don't know what that means. Whoop. Okay, I have a damage down, so I'm guessing that I did something wrong. That was an extremely long tooltip. I'm not sure what I was supposed to do there. Okay. Ow. Ow. Yeah, that's definitely the mechanic to watch out for in particular. The tank buster, because it makes him hit genuinely hard. I think this might be when we die to a knockback, because I'm not sure what the headwind does. We're getting targeted by a lot of things right now. This feels like like what he does on normal when the DPS check sets in. Oh, nice! I love that. Correct. That is exactly when the DPS check sets in. You're not understanding it. Well... so far I haven't been very respectful to this boss. There's a lot of mechanics that I've just gone, I'm not sure what to do, and just taken it. Because the damage be like this. The only thing that I need to really worry about seems to be dying to a knockback, or him using the tank buster and then getting like 5 hits back to back. And then I also need to worry about his enrage timer. Like, if we run out of time, then it doesn't matter how well I was doing throughout the boss fight. And I'm not sure when the enrage timer is. I think we don't have to get really far away for this. Nah. Didn't really matter. I think I can go behind him like this. Yeah, it looks like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to like run all the way over there and then dash to safety behind him. And there comes the tank buster. And this is when we have to be very strict with our self-healing to stay safe. Although he only punched me once. That's a really funny thing with these boss fights where the boss gives you a debuff that requires a tank switch. Because often the boss will cast something right after, so he only gets like 1 or 2 hits in to make use of the debuff he applied to you. Oh right, this mechanic. Well, it's going very well so far. For me, I'm just expecting him to out of nowhere go, actually, I'm out of mechanics, and immediately jump to enrage. Which is probably what's gonna happen. But so far he hasn't gone through very many of his mechanics. See? Oh, it's just a full heal mechanic. And we have a third of his health left. Now the question is whether there's a third of the fight left. And here comes the tank buster. So we use a defense cooldown. And then we take a punch. And then we start self-healing. Oh, that one again. Ow! Ow! Okay, so that did 300,000 damage. And we were down for the count for so long that we didn't get the opportunity to respond. Let me just see if it's what you're actually supposed to do about that. If it's just, it could be just, oh, you have to stack for it. Then there's not much we can do. What was it that attack was called? Did you guys see? Sounds like it's just called knockdown. Yeah, knockdown. If it's taken alone, it will deal very heavy damage and stun the player. And Big Bang happens after. But we survived the first time. Oh yeah, that could be. Maybe Invuln would work. That might work. Let's try that. Let's try that. But the weird thing is, he did that very early on. But if I remember correctly, early on, what he did instead was he cast the knockdown, and then he just stood there taking in his incredible results for like a good few seconds, and then started casting Big Bang, so he missed the opportunity to like use it. Yeah, exactly. I'm still down when he casts Big Bang, so the way that it has to go is that as the knockdown cast finishes, I use Holmgang right at that very last moment, so that I will have Holmgang for when he uses Big Bang, because the stun lasted, I believe, just long enough that I didn't have the opportunity to cast anything. So I will need to use Holmgang, survive the Big Bang, and then use like Equilibrium to heal back up. If I can't do that, like if that doesn't work, it could be that it hits through invulns, and that might be the case. But if it does, then the other alternative is stacking defensive cooldowns. But if I have to do that, then I pretty much have no defensive cooldowns, because it did 300,000 damage, if I saw correctly. If it did 300,000, didn't it do 300,000? It did 300,000 exactly. So just to survive it, I would need to be standing with over half of over 150,000 health, and then still stack so many defensives that I had take less than half the damage after the knockdown attack, which also does damage. So this is going to be tough. One thing we can also do to help our chances is we can eat some buff food. It's not going to change much, but it's going to help a little bit on the damage. Actually, let me just, before we go in again, I just had the like a strategy guide open for it. Okay, so what was left? Oh yeah, I think we were in the very last bit of the fight, because it was the last element. So we had very little time to spare, and it's probably because we lost some damage on the fact that it was the first try. But it doesn't matter, we go again. I believe that one was the frontal cone, or frontal AoE. Yep. And what do you do next? Inferno. I thought you did the cones before that. Maybe you skipped something. I believe that's sides first. Yes. And then comes the tank buster. And we don't really use our bloodwetting yet. We need to see if he actually is going to follow through on this, and it appears he's not going to. So now we heal. Now that he's done doing a lot of damage. Here comes the knockdown. We do like this, Holmgang. Then he just didn't use Big Bang for some reason. Look, now he uses Big Bang. And missed the timing. But that's what happened last time too. Like, that's why I wasn't particularly scared. Was because he missed the timing so perfectly that it seemed like it was intentional. But now we have to keep in mind that he's gonna get it right the second time. That's I should actually really consider just going into that proximity AoE as he jumps, because it does very little damage to me. I might be able to just ignore it entirely, and that would mean that I can keep more damage uptime. But since we haven't seen Enrage yet, there's no reason to rush. I'm trying to do as much damage as I can, but we don't have to worry about that yet. Huh? That's actually a weird thing. I don't know if you noticed that, but knockdown stacked on top of the knockback from the tornado, and then I just didn't get knocked down, and I didn't get the magic vuln up. There's a lot of weird things on this boss where it's just randomly like, oh, but it doesn't count when it's this time. Bowels of Agony is the DPS check. A great opportunity to get some free healing in while we're at it. That's a really, really inconvenient time that he gives the damage down right there at the end. But that damage is completely irrelevant. Now, this is the sign that we're halfway through the fight. Not quite, because we do have, like, right at the end he casts like 4 attacks in quick succession. But we are hurting for time right now, certainly. But I do believe there's a few places we've already discovered where we can optimize a little bit for damage. Case in point, maybe I can ignore this, as I said. Yeah, pretty much. And since there's no other DPS checks other than the actual Enrage now, I don't have to worry about saving any attacks. Not that I really did. And there's the Tank Buster. And then he punches like once. And then he's like, oh wait, but I have this other mechanic that I'm gonna do instead. That's really silly. I believe there's like 2 or 3 bosses that does exactly this thing in... Oh, there it is. Wait, wasn't this? No, this is not when we died. That's true. I might have killed myself now, because I won't have home gang for the next one. Wait a minute. Oh, okay, I get it now. That's hilarious. I think the reason why I'm not getting knocked down is because it's the game views it as a generic stun. And if you have inner release active, then you can't get stunned. So basically, if I can figure out exactly every single time that he uses the knockdown move, then I can just immune it. The problem is that I can't like sit on inner release for that. I pretty much have to like be like, oh, okay, it's gonna happen in just a moment. Like, for instance, if he's gonna do the next, like if the next knockdown comes late enough that my next inner release, no, it will not be available. Then we use every single defensive cooldown that I have left and pray. $277,000. So, the problem here is that he casts knockdown every so often. Like, there's a few minutes, like, there's more than a minute between them, but it's not like an even amount of minutes, which means that I need to see it coming. It appears that he does the knockdown move once per elemental cycle, and there's 4 cycles. But each cycle is like 2 minutes or so. So that means that I would have to like delay my inner release like 30 seconds to immune each one. But the thing is that it appears that some of them does not actually give me the debuff, I think. Or maybe that was just inner release doing its magic. What I think I should do is, when I see knockdown, I should make sure that I'm checking whether I already have inner release active. And if I do, then I can skip home gang. I'm still not sure whether home gang even works, because it wasn't ready this time, because I wasted it. But let's try again. Wait a minute. I accidentally changed the language on my keyboard, apparently. Damning Edict. So one other thing is that I think I realized that the knockback in the Cyclone mechanic it's not so huge of a knockback that you really have to worry about it. If you do what makes sense, which is standing on the long sides, like near the corners, rather than on the like closer to the edge, then it'll be mostly fine, and you don't have to worry about it. So I can ignore that, and I can likely chase him for when he does the proximity AoE in the Cyclone mechanic. So we're learning some things slowly. We're learning things we can do, but the damning part is definitely when he does the Big Bang in the Earth section. That's the one that really causes me problems. Okay, so I'm gonna see if he's actually gonna miss the timing here consistently. I really don't understand. Ralu asks, is warrior your highest item level tank? My warrior is in crafted gear. Due to the premise of this stream being that the equipment has to be somewhat easily attainable, I do not have any like I don't have any savage gear by virtue of not having beaten P5S, and I have not spent any weekly tomestones on 620 gear yet. But we could do that if we find out that the damage is really close. Like, if we're really, really close to beating the DPS check, or the enrage, then we could go out and get some gear like a little bit of gear to get a few extra pieces, but so far we need to see the enrage first for it to even matter. But my paladin also has 610 because I specifically purchased weapons for both warrior and paladin because I felt that there was a decent probability that paladin would be able to do some like weird shenanigans to optimize if the boss has like a lot of ranged sections or something. While I don't think any of the other tanks would be able to like add anything unique that warrior wouldn't be able to do. In fact, I think paladin is the only tank that can keep up with the self-healing capabilities of warrior. But it would be as easy as just purchasing a weapon for Gunbreaker or Dark Knight if we, for some reason, deem that we need that. That would just be a matter of getting it. But warrior is definitely the tank that I have the most experience with. Which is why I preferred to go here with warrior. What is your least favorite tank to play? I think like in general content, I think it's like it depends a little bit, but it varies between Gunbreaker and Paladin. But the reason why is actually not the tank's fault. The reason why I don't like playing them that much is because the instant that you introduce boss mechanics, you start missing your burst windows and stuff like that. And that isn't super fun when you have an extremely tight and strict attack rotation. Whereas warrior, and to some extent Dark Knight too, they don't mind as much missing like a cooldown opportunity. They'll just use it whenever. While Paladin has, you know, 2 burst opportunities, so they have to like space them evenly in a specific way, which makes it sort of hard to recover when your rotation gets displaced like that. And Gunbreaker does the vast majority of their damage in that specific damage window. So it's really difficult to recover. So basically what I'm saying is that the reason that I don't super like playing Gunbreaker or Paladin is because it gets awkward when you introduce a boss. It's a bit like how I prefer to play Summoner and Red Mage over Black Mage, because Black Mage is really fun to play, like in like a solitaire kind of feeling. It's not fun when the boss hits you back. I hope that makes sense, Ralo. But it's very satisfying to get all of the tank rotations correct. It's very satisfying. Oh dear. Okay, so I'm gonna delay my inner release this time. We're gonna see, maybe we can still make the DPS check. But I'm gonna delay inner release to cheese out his knockdown. We dodge the knockback. Ha! Huh. That's very interesting. That's really interesting. So it didn't work that time for who knows why. Huh. This boss is very weird. He just picks and chooses when you are allowed to do stuff. I don't get that. That's a conundrum. Well, that means that there's one option left. Fürstein Fred says, hello, what ping do you have? You can watch that the server time. It says sending 27, receiving 46. It's not entirely off topic. If my inner release was extremely out of off time, like that I missed the opportunity, then that could have been because of lag. But we know that my inner release came out on time because the knockback from the earthquake that came just before the knockdown was immune by inner release. So we know that inner release came up server-wise before knockdown came out. So apparently it didn't work. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a chance that the jankiness of the additional effects of inner release only nullifies the first thing that comes out, but we've immuned a knockback from Cyclone simultaneously with knockdown, so that's a little weird. Did that answer your question, Fred? It varies a bit, but it says typically like sending 20, receiving something like 50 or so. Is that the one you mean? Well, anyway, let's try again. So this time the strategy is basically do the fight as is, as we've done it every previous time. But this time, don't save inner release for the Earth mechanic Big Bang. Instead, we're gonna use Holmgang and see if that works. If that doesn't work, then I'm open for suggestions. We might be able to survive it by using every single cooldown that we had. But I don't think we can actually make that magic happen either. Mainly because I think to actually be topped off in time for that mechanic, we will be forced to use Bloodwetting because he uses a tank buster, and then shortly after does that whole shenanigans with the earthquake and the knockdown. Did we lose Fred? The thing that really worries me with this initial mechanic with the Big Bang is that it's so perfectly timed that the Big Bang, like the magic vulnerability debuff, runs out exactly as the Big Bang lands. That I have a feeling that if we keep trying this, he will eventually land it on time. I don't know why he keeps missing it. So he usually jumps to that specific corner, so in hindsight I should have moved him to that specific corner. Oh, he's going to the other corner now. Looks like he's just intentionally jumping as far away as he possibly can. I wonder if there's any way to avoid this damage down debuff. It's really weird how this whole thing works. That it feels like sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, for just no particular reason. The next mechanic is the intermission with the DPS check. Okay, I just wanted to check if the center for that mechanic was related to where that splash of water was, but it seems to center on me regardless. Thank you, Sussex. We're trying our best. We're having a bit of trouble with a very specific mechanic just instantly killing me. How are you doing, Sussex? See. And then the mine. I feel like there's some reason that I want to move him, but I can't remember. I know that for the next element I need him in this end of the arena specifically, so that that he won't be stuck in dangerous territory right at the start, so that I can keep damage uptime. Oh, that's awesome, Sisig. I hope it's entertaining. So the thing that's causing problems is that when you get hit by the knockdown, you get a debuff that makes the follow-up attack, that is a magic attack, the Big Bang, do basically 300,000 damage and you die outright. But for some reason, every single time he does it, either the magic debuff does not apply for any reason, not sure why, or he intentionally misses the timing by a fraction of a second, which he does right at the start. But on the one that he does in this particular phase, he does not miss the timing. and he does not miss the opportunity to give the magic vuln. So I've tried everything. The only thing that I have left on my list that I can try is flat out use Holmgang and hope that it works. That's the only thing that I have left up my sleeve. And if that doesn't work, then I don't know what we're gonna do about this mechanic. And we have Holmgang. Okay, we're alive. We're alive. Whew. Now the only thing missing is that it goes, what if I do it again though? The sad thing is that I'm pretty sure what comes next is his soft enrage, followed by his hard enrage. Yeah, so that's step one, then he casts the wind thing again, then he casts the water thing again, and then he casts the fire thing again. And it's not like the full phase, as far as I understand. See now the tsunami again. Okay, so the order is a little different. But that means that that's like my timer, and he has 13% health left. Now the question is whether he's casting something after the fourth element. Oh nice! I love that. The random knockup that gives me damage down. And there's the end. When that finishes casting, we lose. And in case you're thinking, oh, that's just 300,000 damage, maybe you could just use defensives. I'm pretty sure that it hits through defensives. But the good news are that apparently you can survive everything he does up to the enrage. It is possible to survive every single mechanic he does. But we need like perfect execution on this. We might need burst potions, we might need more gear. I'm pretty sure this has been done in item level 600 though, so it should be possible. What we can do is we can give it another shot and see if we can do better now that we've seen the fight from start to finish. Either way, my perspective on this is, can you solo it? Probably. If you do everything perfectly, it can be done, because it is survivable. You can survive every mechanic, and it is on a, I would say, shaky try. I'm not sure I did everything perfectly in this attempt where we almost had him. But overall, I would say that it is possible if you optimize a little more, and I'm pretty sure it has been done. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that I heard about someone else beating it just before the new raid tier came. But let's give it another go, just to see if we can do a little better. Oh yeah, and Synced. Before this, we soloed Sastasha Synced with Scholar. That was surprisingly effective. In other news, he switched up the order, guys. He switched up the order. He's done the exact same order every single try we've had, and now he switches it up for some reason. Not super happy about that, because now I don't know if I'm supposed to use Holmgang specifically on the Earth version. what we're gonna do is we're gonna test, see if it's the Earth version that is causing the problem. Yeah, the warrior buffs came out Tuesday. It's helping, yeah. But it is very possible that the reason whether it can or cannot be done is like a bunch of different things. Like, it might be me, it might be gear. I think maybe I've discovered some more shenanigans we might be able to pull through. I think I didn't get the magic vuln up debuff because his attack didn't actually do enough damage to break my barrier. Which is like the weirdest kind of shenanigans. It comes up in a very, very, very few encounters in the game, just in general. Oh. Okay, so guys, we discovered what the Earth debuff does if you don't heal it up. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That was a little funny. Anyway, we discovered some things. First of all, he does not necessarily choose to do it the same way every time, but he has two paths. Either he's gonna do fire wind, or he's gonna do water earth. And then he's gonna do the opposite afterwards. And we also discovered that if you don't fully heal from the earth debuff, then you die. I don't think that was the best attempt anyway. Like, I was mostly distracted from attacking the boss because I completely forgot to move him into position for the earth mechanic. But I was still also a little confused by how he switched up the mechanics. Like, look, now he's doing fire again. Also, I think, just to switch it up a little bit, so we're doing a little bit of different things, instead of just pushing 09S all evening, I think this or the next attempt will be the last one, and then we'll see if we can try and solo something else. And you guys are welcome to come with suggestions, as I have said in my pinned comment. Anything that you would think would be funny to see if I can try and solo, you're welcome to suggest. You don't have, like, I'm probably going to choose what job I'm gonna do it with myself. But you're very welcome to suggest what you would like to see it with specifically. And here comes the weird shenanigans again. Like, it's so weird, he's just standing there. Like, he's just as confused by the fact that his attack worked as I am. He's just standing there. Like, I'm guessing the reason why he does that is because it's the first time he uses it in the fight. So he's giving you the opportunity to understand what's happening. You know how in normal it teaches you how a mechanic works, and then starts like mixing them up. I'm guessing that's what he's doing, but normally they don't do that much on Savage. But it would make sense because the mechanic works a little different on Savage. So another thing here is that you can probably completely forego using arm's length on that mechanic. I use it because I don't want to meter out exactly how much I need to be knocked back to dodge the damning edict. I find it easier to just arm's length and move into position. I have a feeling that the guides that you saw originally when this fight came out also said something to the effect of you can not use knockback if you want to, but your raid leader will probably say that you should, because the probability that you're gonna mess it up is very, very high. I could completely, definitely imagine that happening. But I don't feel like we did much more damage on this try than the previous. Another thing that we could look into is whether there's any ability at all to dodge those damage downs. And then we're back to this again. And then he does Tsunami, which means that we should be ready to run to that corner, because he usually jumps to that corner. But he does this first, of course. I also think that despite everything, even if we ultimately don't end up beating it, I do feel we learned a lot about how the fight works, which is a success in its own right. We should start moving the boss towards the center and then towards the other end of the arena to prepare him for the earth phase, so that I don't mess that one up again. Yes, I do think I've discovered why his mechanic just sometimes doesn't work right. I think it's related to me shielding the entire attack. And because it's somewhat inconsistent for some reason, it's not every time that I immune it or fully survive it. And because the earth mechanic, specifically only the earth one, has an attack that comes so close in timing to the knockdown itself, it's very hard to get a shield up in time. Also because of this mechanic, I tend to need to use my bloodwetting for that instead. Nope, poke check. We got him down to like 6% health, I believe. Okay, now I'm gonna try and see how mega shenanigans we can get. Okay, I messed that one up and messed up my combo. But we survived. I think there's something with that knockback that makes it really, really hard. Specifically because the knockback comes just in time so that it eats your any shields you may have put up. But comes in so late that you can't shield those afterwards. But it does seem like, I think that shields might prevent him from applying the magic vuln in the first place. See here, this is the soft enrage, as I said before. The big issue here is that I believe the cyclone specifically causes a damage down effect. And I don't know if there's any way to avoid it. Can you solo this as a Blue Mage? I think the answer to that is probably no. This fight is a on par content like this. Is actually an encounter that you can be offered as a weekly quest as a Blue Mage to do as an 8-man party. So I'm 100% confident that a Blue Mage cannot solo this. It is not possible. But we got really close. I think it might be doable with, I would say, the thing is, I believe that because of some of the shenanigans we're getting away with, I'm pretty sure it has to be a warrior that does this, not any other tank. But the difficulty in this is also that we have a really tight DPS check. One thing we could do different is, and I didn't bring these, but if we had strength tinctures, we might be able to push a little more damage, but I don't think it's gonna make the difference. Another thing is getting a little bit more gear. Another thing beyond that is trying to optimize our stats more specifically. What I mean by that is that if you just have crafted gear, as you can see that I have, some of the gear pieces are not ideal, to put it nicely. Hypothetically, warrior doesn't need any skill speed at all, so any gear pieces with skill speed we don't have to have. We could have had crit on those instead, for instance. Like these pieces are really good. But any piece with tenacity on it is like, those pieces are actually terrible. Like if we could switch these earrings with something that had crit on them instead, they would be far better. Just crit anything would be better than this, but crit determination would be best. The same applies here, is that if we wanted some better helmet, we would need it to be crit determination, and like this chest piece. Anything that doesn't have crit on it is weaker than it could have been, basically. So there is some gear optimization to be done. The problem, the main concern here is whether we have it or not. If you come into this fight with like full best in slot from Savage of the previous tier, I'm not sure if you would actually do more damage than in this set. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't, just because of the buffs that Warrior got recently, and also because the weapon item level matters a lot. Let me just check something for comparison's sake. Yeah, it would be like several % less damage. So I don't think that that would that perfect gear at item level 600 would be better than this. But what we can do is we can take a little look at what gear we could have. Which means, just in case anyone is worried about that, I'm going to teleport to the end game city where you buy this kind of gear. So just make sure you're not looking too deeply on the screen if you don't want to see that. So one thing we can do, I don't see it. One thing we can do is we can check this causality gear, which is 10 item levels higher. I'm going to check for warrior and see if any of the pieces have the perfect stat line. In particular, a better combination of secondary stats than the piece we already have. Like, for example, the helmet that we had would be better if it had like anything that had, if it was crit determination, that would be better than this. And incidentally, the helmet here has crit determination, so this helmet would actually be a significant upgrade in addition to being a high item level. On the other hand, this chest piece is probably something that we would consider not having at all. Like, the stats of determination tenacity is terribly bad. We wouldn't want that. Like, if you can have crit, and the piece we already have has crit. The gloves here are technically better than what we have because there's crit on them, but they also have tenacity. The pants are marginally better than the ones we already have because they prioritize crit instead of determination, which is always better than the opposite. The boots are also terrible. The earring is significantly better because it favors crit. It still has tenacity, but it favors crit, and the one we already have does not even have crit. The necklace is worse because it doesn't favor crit. The bracelet is bad, and the ring is equally good to the rings we already have. So basically, there's a few pieces that we could benefit from getting. In particular, I think the best piece we could get right now... I don't really want to get anything that makes me lose skill speed, because right now my gear actually has a skill speed threshold that works really well for all tanks. Like, I have just enough that it works for any tank, which I really like to have. But I think the earring might be the very likely be the best. It also sucks that the bracelet that we have and the bracelet that we can buy are both not that good. So what we do is we grab this earring, and then we discover that we still have enough to also buy either the gloves or the helmet. Now, the gloves are really good because of the crit that it adds, but it also makes us lose skill speed, and I don't know if I'm super up for that. I'm not sure. I'm gonna get the helmet because I know that is a guaranteed upgrade, like a perfectly safe upgrade. Let's see if I can find my glamour set. There it is. Let's see, Pokeshack has been looking up some boss tactics, I can see. I'll check them in just a moment. So the benefit of using a piece that has primarily critical hit on it is that it means you have this space to melt something else. Because if it doesn't have crit on it, then you have to melt crit. And you might be looking at me melding direct hit now as a warrior tank and be going, but wait, doesn't your guide say that warriors hate direct hit? The good news on that is that with the rework of how direct hit and critical hit works, first of all, critical hit's explanation blurb is huge now, it's really large, but what it essentially amounts to is if you use an attack that is guaranteed to direct hit, then direct hit, the stat, is added as a damage multiplier, a bit like determination, instead of being a chance, because the chance is already maxed out. Okay, so let's see what Pokeshak said. Headwind is a debuff applied to all tanks and healers. A strong wind blows towards the face of your character. Players with headwind should face away from the cyclone. And in Enrage, cyclone rate-wide damage that applies head or tailwind to all players, which will detonate at the same time. Seeing as there is no possible way to get knocked back, which normally resolves head or tailwind, all players will suffer major damage, get knocked up into the air, and receive a damage down debuff once head or tailwind has expired. And what I can glean from that is the first tailwind can be the first head or tailwind can be avoided, in that you can avoid getting the knockback or the knockdown and the damage down effect, but on the second one you can't. Now another problem is, I believe there was also a damage down during the... Wasn't there a damage down during the water mechanic? I think there was. Let me see. It's during the tsunami mechanic. Maybe I remember that wrong. I think it was that thing called dynamic fluid. Oh, those are donut AoEs, that's why it misses. It sounds like the main thing that you would be able to do about that whole fight to get a little bit more damage in is learning to deal with the headwind or tailwind mechanic. That's something we could do. So let's say this. I will go in and give it one more try just to see how much damage difference the gear made. But after that, I think we're gonna try something else. You're welcome to come with suggestions, and if you don't have any suggestions, I do believe Pokeshak suggested, Tuesday suggested Aurum Vale with a Blue Mage. I think I've shown soloing that before, but now we can show it again. See how well I can do it. Yeah, I don't think that... I have a feeling that I might get it wrong anyway. And he's starting with the water mechanic. Excellent. So I'm gonna slowly drag him over to this side, because as we discovered, he's gonna do Earth after this, as always. But yeah, you guys, you're very welcome to write any suggestions you might have for something we could solo after this try. Because I am going to do something else after this try, so that it doesn't become can I solo O9S the stream featuring Sastasha. And then we can see what is the most interesting one that we can talk about. Trying. He spent a long time just hanging out there. Well, Pokeshack, I think what made it take 45 minutes was that it was a healer solo. If it was Blue Mage, it would probably take much less. I do believe Aurum Vale, I think I've managed to do in like 10 minutes with Blue Mage. But if we did some like much higher level content, for instance, then it would take a long time even for Blue Mage. I think I'm dead to the next mechanic that follows immediately after. Yep. I had some problems actually getting the healing up. How much health was he at? 60%? Anyway. I think that's enough O9S. But we did progress a lot. Like, we went from not being able to see like half of the mechanics to getting to the end relatively consistently and just missing some damage. I think the thing that would help the most would be to use burst potions. The tinctures. Because each attempt is like 10 minutes long. We would be able to use one tincture in the opener and one tincture 5 minutes in, and that would add a lot of damage. I don't think that alone would do those 6% that we were missing, but it's something to watch for. How far can you go doing normal raids just from Alexander? Well, one thing is that I don't think you can do most of them synced. I don't think. Maybe? But maybe Blue Mage can do some of them unsynced? Possibly. The reason why I'm a little skeptical is because, for instance, just A1, the very, very first boss, has a DPS check of some sort on normal. But we can try. We can certainly try. Let's see, what is this set that I've logged, like that I've left it in? Let's see, what's this set? What's this set? This looks more like something to solo stuff with. It has Toad Oil. That looks like a solo set of some sort. What things would we be missing? We don't need Ram's voice for a raid. But what would we take in its place? We don't need Missile because I don't believe that's gonna work. And we didn't need Ram's voice because that wasn't gonna work. So the question is, what are we gonna add? Rose of Destruction is some free damage. It shares cooldown with Clenonian Gate. So the question is whether we will need Clenonian Gate. I don't know if it's called Clenonian Gate or Shalonian Gate. We might want to have Cold Fog though. That's a lot of damage that we could gain. Matra Magic, maybe? I think it's better to have Angel Snack if we're just having one of them anyway. Mainly because it's a decent heal that doesn't necessarily need you to be healer mimicry. Because you still get the 400 potency. The only alternative to this that does a decent heal is Wide Wind. Or Devour, which we're already bringing. What else can we bring? What else do we not need? We do not need Ultra Vibration. Yeah, this is the classic Blue Mage content. What actions should we bring for the encounter is a significant portion of the procedure. Wait, that's a spell. That means that that's not really good to bring because we can't weave it. What could we use? Most of these things will not do anything, which is why I guess we could use Gobskin. It's better than nothing. I think Magic Hammer is probably better than bringing Gobskin for a 100 potency shield at the start of a fight. I think that's everything we can. We don't need Exfoliation. Well, Pokeshack, it's not so much about builds in this case. There's like a lot of actions that may be helpful, and we bring like we take as many of them as we can carry. But some actions are not helpful in this kind of content. Like for instance, Toad Oil might not be that helpful because it's just 20% dodge chance, or 20% more dodge chance than what we already have. But it's multiplicative, not additive, so it's not very much. But if it means that the boss is gonna miss us like once, just once, then it's possibly better than other spells that we could have taken in its place. Maybe. For instance, we won't need Stotram, and now that we have 2 slots open, we can suddenly say, well, we could use both Song of Torment and Bristle at the same time, and that's a lot better. One thing we may run into now, though, is that I believe the first fight does include multiple enemies, and we only have a single target spammable attack. So it would probably be beneficial to choose an AoE attack that has a fast cast time, even if it comes at a slight detriment to our DPS overall. Like, for instance, Fire Anger on here. Because it does AoE damage, and is just as fast as Sonic Boom, I'm willing to guess that it might be better. So that's everything that we need to bring. Now the only thing we're missing is we need to find a tank to copy, and the reason why we're copying a tank is because it gives us a significant defense boost. The alternative is copying a healer so that our healing spells are more effective, but the thing is that we're not bringing very many healing spells. I'm very much going to be relying on specifically White Wind. So what I'm gonna try is see, can we solo just regular old Alexander A1N to see if we can do it. If it turns out to be really easy, then maybe we should see if we can beat the Savage version. But I'm gonna say right now, I've never done A1S, so I wouldn't know how it would be different. And the reason why we're doing A1 and not any of the like later parts is just to see, just to test. Pokedex says, we have it all, just missing a little blue in your Blue Mage, or have we already changed the name to Pink Mage? Well, Red Mage is Pink Mage and Blue Mage is Pink Mage, it's just whether you're wearing pink or not. That's all it comes down to. I do believe there's like an ad phase here. Yeah, okay. For a moment I was getting a little confused. So, let's see if we can get the cold fog up. Yep. So the initial fight, the so-called gatekeeper, was not that bad. What's going to be the annoying part here is that we kind of have to wait for cooldowns. Because it would be awkward if we lose because of some damage-related issue. The difficult part about A1 is that it has like a little interesting way of a DPS check. To be specific, when the ad spawns, when either one of the ads or when either one of the bosses go low enough, they will start casting a self-destruct, which immediately wipes you if it goes off. Which means that we want to be sure that we're bringing them down somewhat equally fast. And because we're bringing Fire Ang on, which means we can cleave them, that's going to be more damage than not having Fire Ang on. But it does mean that we can't just, bring one almost into the explosion range. We need to bring them down equally as best we can. And then cleave them down. Which also means that when the ad spawns, the safest move is to just carefully chip them down and keep every single cooldown that we have until it's kill time. And speaking of kill time, we just about have every cooldown ready now. So, we ready up Whistle. And here we go. Uh-oh. I can't move from this. Maybe we can survive the damage. Ow. Ow. Well, the damage is slow enough that we sort of can slowly await. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to be holding back on my cooldowns to make sure that we have everything for when the ad spawns. I do believe it spawns at 20%. So we're not hurting for time at all. Like, that's not an issue. We are hurting a little bit for those guys though. I don't want to fight those. I don't think I've ever seen those spawn in a raid. Oh, there's the ad spawning. That's the sound of the ad spawning. How much health do you have? Okay, then we do this. Oh boy. It appears their self-destruct timer is either like really slow, or it's related to you pushing one ahead. Because we kept them equal, they didn't do anything? Maybe that's why? Well, that was very easy. I don't think that it would be possible synced, but I might be wrong on that. I do believe that someone proved that Tsukuyomi could be soloed on normal, even though it's level 70 content, which means that it would be synced content automatically. But I have not done that. That was not that hard. Pojek says, it's like the scene of SpongeBob. You're a pink healer mage. He's a pink mage melee. I'm a pink mage with monster skills. I'm not sure which scene that is. I guess it's a little difficult to get it translated perfectly. It's fine. A pink explosion sound in the background. We could try and go further in Alexander normal. Alternatively, we can also try something else. Did you want to see Aurum Vale? We could go into Aurum Vale, but then I just have to fix my spells again. What spells would we want different for that? Specifically, what we would be missing is... we would be missing... Is there another pink mage? There's the red pink mage and the blue pink mage. Should we do that? We can do Aurum Vale just to see how quickly we can do it. It's a dungeon that can be synced and soloed relatively easily by a blue mage, but it's a common one that people want to solo or at least want to do regularly in Moogle Tombstone times, which I guess the next time Moogle Tombstones are gonna happen is gonna be a few months from now at the very least. But still. Exactly, Ram Voice with Ultra Vibration. That is the quintessential moves to beat this. There might be a few other moves that we might want, such as Missile. And the question is what we're dropping for that, and it's probably gonna be Cold Fog. Which it just so happens to be the button that we would want to replace it with too. I don't think we need anything else, but I'm curious to just make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. No, I don't think there's anything else. So we take the level sync and we find good old Aurum Vale. It's like the classic Blue Mage dungeon because of how typical it is that people do Aurum Vale with Blue Mages because of Moogle Tombstone month. So it might be nice to see how it's done, I guess. In most cases, people don't solo it though. But it can be helpful if you're a little late to the party and then your friends don't want to go. Actually, there's one ability that I think... At least one. I think we actually want to have Launcher and Gobskin, if we can have that. Hey Fashday, how are you doing? Launcher, and I don't know if we're gonna need Devour, but I don't think we're gonna need Rose of Destruction. So let's grab Gobskin. Now my action bar is like weirdly unbalanced. This is probably fine. Okay. Move this. And Toad Oil. And this might go wrong. I'm just gonna say it right now that this is not the safest way to do it. It is the fastest and most entertaining way to do this pull specifically. But I have wiped immediately from doing that before. Okay, that's the. Now we're at the first boss already. And it is at half health. There it is. And remember to eat a marble fruit. The debuff does a lot of damage over the course of the dungeon, like over that 1 minute where you have the debuff, if you don't remove it, and it does not get removed by beating the boss for some reason. So because we're so far ahead, it's safer to deal with these enemies a little bit at a time, simply because I would rather not want to fight the gold vine with the seedlings. Just because it's annoying, really. It's not because it's particularly threatening, because we can just run up and freeze it. But because we don't have Ultra Vibration, and Missile could miss, we might be in a lot of trouble if we're unlucky. And because my only AoE attack is Ram's Voice, it would be better to not have a big enemy and small enemies at the same time. We already passed the worst part. Yeah, that's true. The big first room is really difficult. I did not... the only thing that I'm doing as a repeat is actually this dungeon, because I have actually shown this on stream once before. But that was for a completely different reason that we were doing that content. But the first dungeon that we did, Sastasha, I have not soloed that with anything but Blue Mage before, so that was actually a first. That's also why when Pokeshack suggested it, I said, I don't know if we can beat it, actually. And the O9S that we were doing earlier, I have not soloed that. I don't think it's actually even, if it is possible, and I do believe it is possible, it has not been possible for that long. So I had to, you know, learn the boss on stream here as we did it, which meant that we had to find out how to deal with mechanics. This one, however, is as I said, the classic Blue Mage dungeon. So I have done this one multiple times alone. In fact, this spell called Glover that the boss casts, you need that spell for the Blue Mage quest line, which means, yes, that I beat this boss without the vast majority of the Blue Mage toolkit alone, synced, back when Blue Mage's level cap was 50. Oh no, actually it was unsynced, so I had significantly more health, but I still had I didn't have Missile, for instance. So I had to fight, what's it called, the first boss, without most of the tools. Oh, you've been here the entire stream! Oh, okay, cool. So if I remember correctly, there's some weird shenanigans with those poise guys, but it seems like I'm wrong about that, maybe? Oh, okay, now I remember. The poisoned peasant thing used to be immune to deep freeze, if I remember correctly. It was just immune for no reason. So you usually had to take that pull a little more carefully, because it just would miss and mess you up like that. Speaking of messing me up like that, this is an annoying pull to deal with. I did not intend for them to be spaced like that. You know, I can say, like, as you asked, Pashte, it's not like I've been practicing all this solo content beforehand. Specifically, Aurum Vale is something that I've done many times. It's almost like a performance that I've practiced, you could say. Mainly because I think it's really funny to solo this dungeon because it's considered so difficult. But it can be done relatively easily with Blue Mage. I don't think this is necessary, but we're just clearing through. So if I remember correctly, you can skip those marble fruits because the door opens when you kill the gold vine. Yep. Here's a fun fact. For anyone interested, back when mobs in dungeons gave experience, because before Endwalker, I believe, maybe a patch in Endwalker, but before Endwalker, mobs in dungeons gave experience individually, so if you wanted to maximize the amount of experience you got out of a dungeon, you wanted to kill everything, except if you were scaled down, in which case the amount of experience you got per kill was worth significantly less. Relatively speaking, not because they gave less, but because your experience bar was much bigger compared to the experience the enemies gave. It wasn't that useful, so that gave a little issue because the people queuing for the dungeon because they needed the experience from doing that dungeon wanted to kill things, while the people that got put in it randomly from a roulette did not want to kill things. So they removed that feature. But the fun fact is that the marbles that come out of the marble fruits give 6,666 experience each, or they did. I can't remember if it was with rested experience bonus or not, but they did give exactly 6666 experience. That's a little fun fact that will be very hard to prove or disprove because of how the feature's gone from the game now. Now we get to the part where we have to actually interact with the boss. Oh, I think I'm gonna take a lot of damage right now. I overrated how much damage it was gonna be, but I did need to jump for cover, that's for certain. Now we're gonna focus a little bit on some mana generation, as Blue Mage does. So really important part is respecting the tank buster, because the Miser's Mistress throws that out with no warning. So we want to stay above, like significantly above 50% health, just on the off chance that it should land just in the wrong way. Whew. And we focus a little bit more on mana generation. More marble fruit. And it's going to summon more ads, so we run over and get to it in time. And there we are. And that is how you solo Aurum Vale. Also, good to hear that you're doing well, Fasting. I forgot to actually comment on that. Well, anything else you guys want to see soloed? Because I do realize that it is getting a little late for me, but it's early to end now, so I would love to hear another suggestion. Anything will do. The worst that can happen is that we can't do it, or that it's a little easy, like when we did A1. I always get worried whether I missed some comments that the page is just not showing me, but I'm pretty sure I got everything. Pretty sure. Otherwise, we can also just talk a little bit. We usually do that near the end of the stream. But that depends on whether you guys have anything you want to talk about instead. It's a bit of a shame that we didn't get O9S. But I don't think I can do it. not right now. We might need a little... I might need a little bit more gear. Because I don't think the burst potions, as I said a few times previously, I don't think the burst potions are gonna do it. How expensive are they actually? Pretty sure it's those. Oh, you're getting help to get your relic? Which relic are you working on, Pokeshack? That's very expensive. That's okay, Pokeshack. If you're busy doing that, then don't let me stop you. What could we do? A particularly interesting one would probably be Cutter's Cry. Heavensward Machinist, you're doing 3 hard dungeons. Oh, okay. I think doing Cutter's Cry synced would be interesting, but the significant part here in soloing Cutter's Cry synced is specifically doing it without Ram's voice. And the reason for that is that you will not have Ram's voice if you're soloing Cutter's Cry. You probably won't. You could have a bunch of other spells, but specifically Ram's voice you probably will not have if you're doing Cutter's Cry. So if I'm going to showcase that here at the end, let's try. So the reason, of course, is that you get Ram's voice from Cotter's Cry. I believe that's the only way to get Ram's voice. Chocometeor, Chocometeor is a spell that is really strong when you're out in the field where your Chocobo is there. It does way better damage than most of your other tools, but only if your Chocobo is present. That is a very important little detail. And also I just realized that I removed my AoE spell and didn't replace it with an AoE spell. Should probably do that, just to keep on theme with not taking something completely busted. I'm gonna take something like Plane Cracker instead. I'm also going to see how little of the more ridiculous spells I have in my arsenal we can get away with using. Mainly because we're not gonna have a lot of them. Like, you might have Missile from getting help with that dungeon, because it's a single boss. Just as an example. But you might be missing other spells. I think Exuviation might be useful. And that's also something you can get in the open world. So this is the weirdest poverty build style we're gonna go with. To see how little we need to use. And then we can demonstrate that things can be beaten and then use the powerful attacks to like skip through things. Like, for instance, these mobs individually are not very threatening, so maybe there would be some reason to just primal spell them down to push a little faster, so we're not in the same awkward situation as with Blue Mage, or with Scholar earlier, where it took ages to get to the interesting parts, which were the boss fights. So, like, for instance, this is worth seeing if we can beat, and clearly we can. So next time it will not be particularly exciting to see me beat 4 mobs, because we already saw that. Depends on which 4 mobs. Use Devour here. So just as a reminder for people that might be interested in doing some Blue Mage stuff of their own, the reason why it's relevant to do something like Cotter's Cry synced is because even if you can do it unsynced in like 5 minutes because you can one-shot everything, if you do content unsynced as Blue Mage, then most of the abilities will have an extremely small chance of actually being taught to you when you beat the enemy. But if you do it synced, then the chance is instead guaranteed, which makes it a lot more manageable. A particular story I had myself is that this spell from Ifrit, Eruption, took me like 60 runs of Ifrit to get. Which doesn't sound like a big issue, but I specifically did it on hard because I was pretty confident that normal would not give it. Which meant that sometimes it would take a little more than 5 seconds to beat it. And then you add that up to do it 50 times, and suddenly it would have been better to just do it synced once. So just that's my recommendation. If you're doing content for Blue Mage abilities, you should try your best to do it only synced. There are very few exceptions where it would be worth not doing it synced, just to save time. And one thing you can do is that your entire party does not have to be Blue Mages to get it. So if you have friends that will do the dungeon with you, they don't have to also be Blue Mages to get the progress for you. So if you can just convince a few friends to do a dungeon with you, you'll be fine. So here is where it would be super duper helpful if you had a friend that helped you get Missile, because it makes the fight immensely faster. It's not difficult, because as long as you have White Wind and Blood Drain and Ethereal Mimicry, you might not actually have that. But as long as you have those abilities, I don't think the princess can actually kill you. Especially if it misses when it casts an interruptible silence on you. So tip for your run, if you're ever doing Cutter's Cry to get Ram's Voice solo, make sure to slot Flying Sardine to interrupt that. See, doesn't the Heavensward relic weapons require you to do a huge amount of Alexander? I feel like I remember something like that. I also say that it's a lot more interesting to do a dungeon when you don't have Ram's Voice to make most of the trash encounters trivial. I believe it was the Temple of the Fist that had a bug, so-called bug, that made it so that Deep Freeze didn't work on any of the enemies in the dungeon. Which made the dungeon a lot harder, not impossible, but a lot harder. And I say that speaking from experience, because I did it, because there was a spell to be learned from the dungeon. And did it synced and everything. But then they removed that little gimmick. I thought it was funny. Oh yeah, every single level 70 dungeon, you can totally solo that. Except Temple of the Fist, because the enemies are immune to stone. Well, you could solo it. That's I misspoke. You can solo it. I did solo it. But you might get the impression that you can't, because Deep Freeze is unavailable. I think we're getting up to the next boss now? Yep. And then in the same vein, the boss will have an extremely hard time killing you as long as you have mana and White Wind. It's gonna be extremely impossible for it to kill you. I believe it can put up a debuff that does a lot of damage, but if I remember correctly, you can use Exuviation to remove it. So you're in no danger at all. Like, this move is the most dangerous move in its entire arsenal, and you just have to sidestep it. And if you're alone, then you have permanent sprint, so it should be relatively easy to dodge it. So from that demonstration, I'm going to skip through the rest of the boss with missile. And then we go on to the last bit. I'm pretty sure the Chimera at the end is immune to missile, but it does have a lot of mechanics, so it's a lot more interesting to view every single individual mechanic that it has. I should also say that, of course, actually, you could pull many more mobs for each pack. Like, you don't have to stop at every single one. If you want to take them all at once to save little time, you can do that. I'm just choosing to do this instead because I'm limiting the amount of abilities I use as much as possible. So I'm not sure what abilities you might have. So that's why I'm for the most part only using Plane Cracker and Sonic Boom and Toadorn and things like that. The most obscure ability that you might be missing when you're doing this yourself would probably be Ethereal Mimicry, because that's like, I believe it's like a level 60 spell. So if you're getting Cutter's Cry like at level 35, you can't have Ethereal Mimicry, but the main difference here is that you're going to be taking a little bit more damage from not having the tank buff. But other than that, I think it should be mostly manageable still. Mainly because I think people managed to do that. As I recall, I did this dungeon repeatedly unsynced to get the spell. But I can't remember how many times I had to do it. But as long as your mana can keep up with the damage of the Chimera, then you don't need any more defense. You just need to beat the fight slowly and safely. Shatter. And now there's like, I believe there's one pack left, and then we get to the boss. So I'll see, I'll make sure to not even try to use stuff like missile until we've seen like pretty much every single mechanic in the boss's arsenal. Because anything else would be like almost like cheating. So we're just gonna spam Sonic Boom as much as possible, maybe use a Devour to keep that health effect up, but otherwise we're just gonna be focusing on dealing with the boss's mechanics, which is very easy when you have basic instincts. Ram's voice, so we run away. Ram's voice again. it's very crucial to deal with the voice attacks, because if you get hit by them, that can be a wipe, just like that. Because if you get hit by the dragon's voice, you get paralysis for a really, really long time, if I remember correctly. And if you get hit by the ram's voice, you actually get frozen. And on top of the damage you're going to be taking from the hit, it might not be survivable. Like surviving until you're no longer stunned. So the one mechanic that's left that we haven't seen is the... So we saw the dragon orb. We're missing the ram orb that it might cast at some point. When we've seen that, we've pretty much seen everything that the boss can throw at us. And if we can manage that mechanic safely, then there's nothing left to see. And there's the orb again. I feel like it's missing something. I'm pretty sure it should have used the ice orb by now. Oh, that's the Ram's Keeper, that's the one. Just dropped it somewhere I wasn't even standing. So just for the sake of demonstration, let's see if Missile even would have worked. It would not, it's fully resisted. Welcome back, Pokeshack. We're doing the slowest Chimera kill in history, just to demonstrate that you don't need very much to beat it. Uh-oh. And this is why we brought Exuviation. Yeah, it doesn't have that many mechanics. It has Dragon's Voice, Ram's Voice, and then the Ram's Breath and the Dragon's Breath, and then it has the Lightning Orb and then Ram's Keeper. And if you can deal with all of those mechanics like consistently, then you can beat the boss. You don't need very many tools. So to beat the dungeon as a whole, you need, like, I used a bunch of different tools, but specifically for this boss, the tools that I used was any ranged attack. It's probably easier if you use a quick one, which means like that water cannon is not the best choice, but you can use water cannon. Like if you really don't have anything, then water cannon is fine. It's just a faster one, gives you a lot more leeway to run around. I used Devour, but that's 20% more extra health. You don't need that. You don't have to bring that, so that's optional. I used Exuviation. You can get that from a mob somewhere in the Sea of Clouds. I believe it's level 59, but I think you can do it at like level 55 if you want to get it then. And then I used Toad Oil, which is one of the easy, like very early spells to get. I would probably recommend bringing Blood Drain just to have mana if you fall behind for any reason. And then White Wind. And then Mighty Guard comes for free. Basic Instincts is level 27. And then Ethereal Mimicry. If you don't have Ethereal Mimicry, this fight is going to be a lot harder. All of the ads, like all of the trash packs up to this boss, is going to be a lot harder. I think most of them can be beaten, but you need to be more smart about it because you're going to take a lot more damage. But mainly, you're just going to need a single target attack with some range, an AoE attack, the Exuviation in case you get hit by any debuff, you can just clear it. That's especially helpful on the Worm and the Chimera because they both have debuffs that can be dreadful. Toad Oil can reduce the damage you take by chance. White Wind, Blood Drain, Mighty Guard, Basic Instincts. You don't need that much. What was like 6 spells? And then you need to, of course, have decent gear that gets scaled down for Cutter's Cry. And when you win, you will be given both Dragon's Voice and Ram's Voice simultaneously. Which is really good. Ram's Voice is one of the most important spells in the Blue Mage arsenal. Especially for soloing content, but also for doing content. Like, you need Ram's Voice for the Aurum Vale speedrun. And Dragon's Voice? If you do fates in the open world, anywhere where level 70 or below is good, so Stormblood content, Heavensward content, and A Realm Reborn content, if you do fates for any reason in those areas, Dragon's Voice is one of the widest AoE attacks in the game. Stotram is also really, really large, but Dragon's Voice allows you to pick up nearly every single enemy in the entire Fate circle. Like, you just go into the Fate, stand somewhere in the middle, and then you click Dragon's Voice and everything in the area gets pulled, except what's immediately next to you. Which can be very helpful for farming. Like, when I farmed Fates for some of my Boshan resistance relic weapons, I did it with Blue Mage, and I definitely used Dragon's Voice a significant amount to do that. So yeah, I can also say that the toolkit that I just listed to beat Chimera, which was, single target ranged attack, an AoE attack, maybe Exuviation, Toad, White Wind, Blood Drain, Mighty Guard, Basic Instinct. You can probably beat most of the A Realm Reborn dungeons that have a Blue Mage spell for you with that toolkit. You don't need more than that. But it's way easier if you have more than that. Like, if we used Eruption, which we totally could have had when doing Cutter's Cry, since technically Ifrit is level 20. I'm pretty sure you can learn it from Bowl of Embers normal. But we could have had Eruption for that dungeon. We could have done a little bit extra damage every now and then. But we didn't. So just to prove a point, we don't have to have very many tools. Now, I don't have any more to solo for tonight, so that leads me to the do you guys have anything you want to talk about before we end the stream? Section of the stream. I guess maybe not. How far are you with that Heavensward relic weapon, Pokeshack? And maybe also a follow-up question would be, why did you choose Machinist? Oh yeah, well, since we're at it anyway, I can show you guys my new question mark green screen. It's not that new. I've used it for a few weeks at the very least. Look at that. This is how you make a green screen. And then you just take your pictures, and then you use a picture editing program to remove the background, and then you're in business. Now you can make memes. The big funny memes. Or edit your character into funny pictures. Or edit your character into pictures next to you. Alright. Anyway, since there's not any big questions or anything, any talking points, I will instead leave a little reminder that on Saturday I'm releasing my macro starter guide. So if you've ever been curious how to make some of those like slightly techie macros, like crafting macros or macros that target for you for specific actions, like, I don't know, Dragoon's Dragon Sight, that should give you the basics for that. It's not gonna teach you how to make those super complicated macros that let you make like drop down menus in your action bars. I feel like those are very, very overkill and not something you would need in a starter guide. But most of the other things that you could want in a macro guide is going to be there. And right after, we're of course having a main scenario quest, Rewind Replay, or Small Guide to Charity Adventures, where we continue through the main quest. And I can also say that you can probably expect more PvP one day next week as well. I'm not sure if we're gonna do more of this particular subject of soloing content next week, but it is something we can bring up again. I think it's fun. We got a lot of quality time with Chaos. I almost felt like I was playing Stranger of Paradise. Thank you for the suggestion. I believe it was Ralu that suggested that one, right? I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, I don't have any more. I can't say if you remember in future on a stream or anything, you're very welcome to, like, on a stream go like, hey, could you solo this thing? Then I'll write it down, and then we'll have the opportunity to have a more structured soloing stream next time, maybe, because I maybe have a game plan before I start. That sucks, Poke Shack. That is like the classic. And you're sitting there like, oh man, and then now they're expecting me to be there, and I'm gone. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You're mostly missed out on my green screen and me just listing the things that we're doing on Saturday. But since you have my schedule, you probably knew that. I'm also thinking over how to best plan mount farming with friends and free company. I need to figure out planning it so that we can have as many people on it at once as possible. That would make it the most fun. It's not something I've forgotten. In fact, it was the most requested thing in the poll that I posted recently, as you may have seen, by far. So I will have to find a way to do it. Because the difficult part is going to be to find a time where as many people are there as possible, because my friend group in game play in a very, very diverse schedule every day. Well, that sucks, Poke Shack. Well, it's fine. You don't have to... Now, You don't have to apologize for not coming. And I'm saying that because I know previously you've apologized for just coming a few minutes late. Hopefully you can still enjoy the adventure in the VOD after the fact. Otherwise, you will probably have a lot to catch up on the episode that comes after that. Depending on how far we get on Saturday. Who knows, maybe we get to fight both Garuda and Ultima Weapon. Now that we no longer have any job quests to distract us. But I do hope you have a great time with your family. That's how it goes when I'm streaming on a Saturday. It's the best time for family. Now, that is everything that I have for you guys tonight. So when I come back, you're already in Heaven's Ward. I don't think so, but maybe if you miss like several weeks, then maybe. Yeah. Good night, or good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you guys so much for watching and putting up with my soloing shenanigans tonight, where we beat some things and got beaten a lot by chaos. And most importantly, remember that Scholar can do Sastasha solo synced. And thank you, Rallo. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. See you guys very, very soon.